In the first reading, Elijah calls Elisha to succeed him as a prophet. When Elijah calls Elisha, Elisha is busy plowing the field with 12 yoke of oxen, and he runs up to Elijah and asks if he can kiss his mother and father goodbye. He gets this permission from Elijah and then slaughters his oxen and has this huge, big goodbye feast with his family and friends. In today's gospel, however, when a disciple called by Jesus to follow him asks whether he could bury his father, Jesus does not give him this permission, saying, "Let the dead bury the dead." Isn't that a bit harsh? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Especially when it's one of your own family members. And yet Jesus responds again to another disciple and does not allow him to say farewell to his father and mother. Isn't that a good thing also? So what's going on here? Why was Elisha able to have a big farewell party? And why weren't these other two disciples able to say even goodbye to their parents? Do the readings contradict each other? What is Jesus trying to teach us? Why has the church put these two readings together? I believe that my own journey of discipleship, my own journey of answering God's call can help kind of shed some light into this question. As many of you might know, I'm recently ordained. It's 3 weeks ago yesterday. And that day was just the happiest day of my life. It was absolutely incredible. I cannot tell you how loved I felt that day, how humbled I was by all the people that came out, all those people that have been praying for me, that have been supporting me throughout this long journey that is preparation for the priesthood. 6 years of studies. I gave my 20s, to preparing to be a priest and to serve him. And like Elisha, I was granted a nice farewell. I was able to have a great big reception with all these good friends of mine from different walks of my life, from elementary school, high school. I had friends flying from across the country, from college, friends I knew from college, to be there to celebrate. And this reception flowed into an after party where I sat around a fire and just caught up with friends I hadn't seen in years. And at the end, we were gathered around the piano as one of my talented musician friends just played, popular songs, and we all sang along, and it was amazing. But there's been also many times in my journey, my discipleship, my following our Lord, where I was not allowed to look back, where I had to kind of give up my will and do what God wanted for me. And the reality is that I haven't been the best at this. Unfortunately, there were many times when Christ was calling me to press forward and to be a disciple of his, but I kind of refused and was hesitant. For example, I would say that I got my first call to be a priest at the end of high school, my senior year. I was at a retreat, and I just kind of had this feeling I think God wanted me to be a priest, but I did absolutely nothing with that. I think the only person I even mentioned that to was my friend, because the reality was that I wanted to continue doing what I wanted to do. I wanted to continue my relationship with my girlfriend at the time. I wanted to go off to the college, just to have a normal college experience, and then go get a job afterwards, live in the city. I just wanted what most people were having. And so I just didn't give God the time of day with that calling. If Jesus had said, "Come, follow me," at that time, I would have responded, "Lord, let me go first and get an education." Isn't that a reasonable request? Wouldn't that be a good thing to ask, similar to the disciples asking to bury their fathers? But the reality is that we can always give some good reason for why we're not ready to follow our Lord when he calls. It could be, as simple as responding, "Lord, first let me get my finances in order, and then I'll follow you." Or, "Lord, let me get a little traveling done. I have a little work, a little stuff I want to get done, and then I'll follow you." There's many good things that, occupy our lives that are good and that we could put forward just to but these are often just kind of a shell and a hesitancy within ourselves to go follow our Lord and his call. The problem wasn't that what I wanted was bad. It was that I wanted to do it and that I didn't want to do what God wanted me to do. I continued to date my high school sweetheart, and I continued to date other girls in college, and at even one point I was engaged to be married. I ignored doing anything more seriously with my priestly vocation, and yet I was convinced, and I convinced myself that what I was doing was good because I could look at my life and things were generally good. But I was deceiving myself because deep down, I know that God wanted more of me. Fortunately, our God is a patient God, and a God who is very patient with me, who was persistent with me and did not fail to remind me of his calling for me. And he broke me down, and I eventually entered seminary, and now I'm here before you today. What Jesus is trying to teach us today is that the most important thing is being obedient to his will. Whether that's him allowing you to linger and enjoy and have a party and have a goodbye feast, or whether he's calling you to push forward, to give up certain goods, to forego certain goods for a greater good, doing his will, to serve him. He teaches us that the most important thing we can do is obey him and do what he wills for our lives. Discipleship is hard because he often calls us to do something we don't want to do. But I assure you that you'll never be happier or more joyful than when you are obedient to his will. I thought I was happy and had plenty of joy in college and in my earlier years outside of college, but none of that compares to the happiness and joy I feel now as a priest, doing his will. And this happiness, this joy can be yours. All it takes is for you to follow him when he calls.